Of course I work for the corporations. You think I'm crazy? Look, you have to be realistic. Appraise your options. There's nothing but grunt jobs on the street. Most of the good jobs out there are managerial. You're bossing a bunch of AIs and robots. To score that kind of work, you need to be an MBA minimum these days. So once you put in 6-7 years, you want to maximize that investment, and the corporation makes that possible. Healthcare when everyone else is festering on the street corner because doctors cost $280 an hour. Company-sponsored housing because the average 2-bedroom home comes in at $500,000 eddies. Perks like an office, a secretary, and a bodyguard. So of course I'm a corporate man. Only an idiot wouldn't be.
Dave Windham. Section 14, Megacorps 2020, Corporate Life. It's big business as usual in the 2000s. The modern corporations of 2020 are much like the corporations of the late 20th century, only much larger and more fully autonomous. They are very nearly nations in themselves, with their own laws, cities, factories, and armies. Most corporations in 2020 are multinational, i.e. they have branches and operations all over the world. These branches may be as small as a research facility or a sales office, or as large as a major manufacturing facility and security center. There are two types of corporations, public and privately held. A public corporation can and does sell stock to the public. The stock is for sale in any of the offices of the World Stock Exchange, and anyone with enough money can buy it. Privately held corporations are more like a family business. All stock, and thus all power, is concentrated in the hands of a very few, usually partners, relatives, or one extremely powerful individual. Howard Hughes would be a great example. Most corporations are manufacturers. They produce some kind of commodity for sale on the open market. Oil, steel, automobiles, aircraft, weapons, computers, cybernetics, biotechnologies. These are only a few of the literal millions of corporate operations. Many corporations have several commodities on the market. They may control chemical plants in Europe, computer factories in Japan, and steelmaking operations in the United States. Media corporations. One type of corporation that deserves special attention is the Megacorps. These huge conglomerates grew out of a trend in the late 1980s, in which certain firms bought up TV networks, film companies, record companies, radio stations, and book, magazine, and even comic publishers, effectively centralizing the media under the control of a very few people. Entertainment has become generic and bland. Print material has a sameness as 100 magazines are produced by the same company. Dissenting opinions and independent productions are usually buried under an avalanche of media hype, or worse, co-opted or destroyed by the vicious competitive practices of the major media corps. Still worse is the effect on news and information. Political candidates have realized that the right connections to the right media corp exec can win elections. Only a short step to where the media corporations actually select, package, and sell their own candidates. While no major government is yet directly controlled by a media corporation, most socioanalysts suspect that it's only a matter of time.
Most people who don't know anything think being a corporate is a sellout. You'd lick the bottoms of Ulf Grunwald's shoes for a safe desk and a computer terminal, but you can actually do some good in the corporate arena because working for a corporation gives you a lot of power. Not all corps are bad guys. Take my bunch. Last year we bought up 23,000 acres of Amazon rainforest and set it aside as a biopreserve. Some people say we did it for selfish reasons. We make biotech animals, and buying up that environment just puts a little more nature in our pockets. But I see it another way. There's 23,000 acres that won't be cut down to make furniture. That's a dozen endangered species that will exist somewhere else besides a gene bank.
Lyle Harrison, Staff Biologist, Biosystems Ltd. Agricorps. The age of the family farm has come to an end somewhere in the 1990s. The United States has always been the world's foremost producer of raw food stock. Coupled with the increasing need for grain and bulk crops to create alcohol fuel and organic plastics, agribusiness became one of the most powerful forces of the post-crash US. Agri-corporations now control, directly or indirectly, nearly 65% of all the farmland in the United States, feeding roughly a third of the world's population and supplying organic fuels and plastics to nearly 2/3. As the technological world underwent crash conversions from its dwindling petroleum reserves over to advanced forms of methanol, ethanol, and meta-alcohol, many of the leading oil producers bought up agricultural lands and shifted their refineries to organic fuel production. As a result, a list of most major agricorps reads like a who's who of energy corporations. Corporate power brokering. The modern corporation is usually organized as a vast hierarchy, with a president and board of directors at the top, and a huge sea of workers at the bottom. In the middle of this, one finds the realm of the corporate executive, a struggling middle-class overachiever, usually with the single-minded goal of grabbing as much power and privilege as possible. The average corporate begins as a junior executive, bossing a particular project or group of people. At the next level, he becomes a manager, controlling a specific department or production area. The major infighting begins here. Only very successful managers get elevated to the position of assistant vice president, where they control entire factories or other operations. They are, in turn, bossed by vice presidents, who control entire divisions of the company. Near the top is the executive vice president, who effectively runs the corporation. His boss is the president, who answers only to the board of directors, major stockholders, and the chairman of the board. Theoretically, corporate advancement is based on merit. In reality, the corporate world is rife with nepotism, deal-making, brown-nosing, cheating, lying, and credit stealing. Extortion, blackmail, and frame-ups are common. One of the most disturbing factors in this web of corporate power brokering is the role of organized crime. Realizing in the early 90s that the new Megacorps represented an unprecedented new field of opportunity, the powerful families of the mafia and other crime groups began to offer their services as bodyguards, hitmen, and general corporate enforcers. This pattern had previously been established among the Zaibatsu corporate families of Japan, who routinely hired both ninja, assassin, and yakuza, gangster, clans for their covert operations. In some cases, the retainers remain faithful, at least to the people who pay the most. In other more unfortunate cases, the hired guns have taken direct control of the corporations themselves, leading to a new age of intercorporate infighting unchecked by even a sham of legality. Employment contracts. In the savage world of big business, it's not unusual for an executive to jump from firm to firm, looking for a big success. To prevent this, most corporations require their employees to sign employment contracts specifying how long they must work for the firm until they can quit. Contracts may run from a year for a low-level executive to an entire lifetime for a key researcher or company president. The penalties for breaking employment contracts are extremely severe, ranging from garnishment of wages, lawsuits, and loss of licenses, in the case of lawyers or physicians. Corporations have also been known to use sabotage software and deadly booby traps to ensure loyalty. Blackmail is common, assassination and kidnapping are expected. This makes corporate headhunting, hiring away another company's staff for use by your own company, a deadly game of cat and mouse. Most corporations have their own extraction teams of solos who, like the KGB or CIA, arrange defections of key personnel from one side to the other. Headhunting can be especially lethal, as most corporations will use any and all means to stop a rival extraction team. Corporations and governments. Since the crash of '96, the governments of the world have been in the uncomfortable position of having to let the multinational corporations do pretty much as they please. Paying lip service to pollution control, product safety, and minimum wage rules, the modern multinational usually strikes a bargain with the local government. Sometimes this may be as simple as a bribe to the right places, or military support for the local dictator. In the more sophisticated United States, corporations tread lightly, going out of their way to hide their more illegal operations and making sure to toe the line in their more visible ones. On the local level, it's often seen as a case of trading power, influence, or money with the right leaders. A judge or police chief here, a senator or congressman there. One major exception to corporate domination is the Soviet Union. Although interest in acquiring the technologies of the West, the Soviets have successfully kept most corporations from gaining any political foothold within its borders. Most corporate offices now hold a status roughly equivalent to a national embassy, with employees carrying corporate-issued international passports and identification cards, better by far than almost anything national governments can produce. Since the unfortunate Yasubisu affair of 1997, in which guards of Tokyo-based Arasaka Corp killed 24 French policemen who attempted to storm Arasaka's Paris office to arrest an executive charged with rape, most corporate foreign branches maintain a policy of shipping criminal employees back to the company's home office. Company negotiators then arrange to extradite the felon back to the nation where the crime took place. The World Stock Exchange. The modern corporation rests on its stock. Stock is essentially a share in the company's assets, which can be traded and sold much like property cards in Monopoly. Corporations sell stock to outsiders in exchange for hard cash, which the corporation can then use to finance its activities. As a stockholder, you are gambling that the stock you hold, which is a percentage of the total value of the company, will increase in value as the company assets increase in value. For example, if in 1975 Cybercomputer was worth a grand total of $100 and you own 20% of this, your stock would be worth $20. 8 years later, when Cyber is worth $2 million, that same 20% is now worth $400,000. On the other hand, if Cyber goes bust, that stock is worth nothing. The more stock you have, the more control you have over the assets and other activities of the corporation. One reason for this is that each share you hold is equal to a vote concerning what is done with the company. As a general rule, if you own more than 50% of the stock of a corporation, you have the majority vote. This vote can be used to fire or choose the leadership of the corporation, direct corporate decisions, and even force the corporation to merge with another company. The basic form of corporate stockholding is little changed from the early stock exchanges, places where people go to buy, sell, or trade stock in companies of the 20th century. What has changed is the scale of operations. The stock exchanges of London, Tokyo, New York, and other major cities were merged into a gigantic world stock exchange late in the 1990s. A generic exchange rate, known as the Eurodollar, had been established and a system of trading imposed over the various sub-exchanges worldwide. While there are stock brokerages all over the world, the major exchange offices are located in London, Paris, Zurich, Tokyo, New York, Cairo, Rome, and San Francisco. However, with the creation of the net, the vast web of communications that blankets the planet, the ability to buy, sell, and trade shares has been extended to almost anyone. Investors can now use their phone nets to contact their brokers at any time or from any place, even the remotest jungles. Never before has the business of making millions on the market been so universal. And never before has the market been balanced on such a razor's edge between incredible wealth and worldwide economic disaster. Corporate espionage and covert activity. In the 2000s, almost every corporation employs at least one force of highly trained covert operatives, specializing in espionage, counter-espionage, sabotage, and counterterrorism. In extreme cases, measures such as assassination and terrorism are not unknown, whether against other corporations or within the corporate structure itself. This is not an entirely new phenomenon. For many years, the powerful Japanese industrial combines, or zaibatsu, were known to secretly employ ninja clans in many of their covert operations. These connections stretch back into the distant past, when many of the same clans served the feudal ancestors of the zaibatsu rulers. Less covert operations requiring muscle and a lack of subtlety were often delegated to various Japanese gangster mobs, many of whom had full or partial interests in the corporations themselves. As Western corporations began to adopt various methods of Japanese management and production, it was a simple step for these companies to adopt or create their own ninja forces. This historical reference may be one reason why hired corporate killers and spies are known on the street by colorful terms such as ninja, samurai, ronin, and yakuza. A corporate covert operations arm usually is made up of weapons specialists, computer technicians, and various hired guns. Almost all of these covert forces are cyber-enhanced with the best technology available. Covert action arms frequently search the dead zones and archaeologies for promising young criminals to recruit, promising them a high pay, the best enhancements, and a life of glamour and adventure. Corporate wars. While most aspects of corporate competition remain on the economic level, there are instances where it moves into the arena of actual warfare. While these are not declared wars per se, they have all the aspects of the real thing, as missiles, armored vehicles, jet aircraft, and cyber-enhanced ground troops are brought into play. By its very nature, a corporate war must be covert. Very few nations are willing to allow two companies to duke it out on their soil. Early on, most corporations hired actual terrorist groups to strike at enemy targets. As these groups became more undependable, the companies began to actually create battle forces disguised to resemble terrorists. Many terrorist groups, such as the infamous Red Flag Army and the New Aryan Sons, are actually fully equipped corporate strike forces, whose seemingly random attacks on rival offices and strongholds are part of a larger covert warfare actions. A corporate war never lasts longer than necessary. If combat activity becomes noticeable, there is too great a chance of government intervention. While no corporate army is yet powerful enough to challenge a major government directly, there are already reports of smaller nations who have capitulated to the power of the business armies. The corporate city. In the 1960s through 70s, social unrest and upheaval tore through the central cities of America, leaving burned out tenements, deserted factories, and dying businesses in its wake. Most major corporations soon moved their operations to safer suburban business parks and malls. But as real estate prices began to rise and the suburbs became more crowded, the major companies began to reconsider their strategies. By the middle 1980s, corporations working with city governments began to rehabilitate the inner city. The corporations provided the money for new buildings, shopping malls, and model community areas, while the government provided tax incentives, inexpensive land, and police protection. By 1989, many inner-city areas across the US, including New York, San Francisco, Baltimore, and Boston, had undergone this gentrification process. The human cost of this restructuring was the displacement of the undesirables of the urban dead zone. Poor, drug dealers, pimps, gangs, and street people were all pushed out from the city center, creating a region bounded on one side by affluent suburbs and on the other by the now showcase central city. This donut effect had a further impact on the community. By shoving the dead zone inhabitants between the two areas, crime rates on both sides of the line began to skyrocket. Street gangs routinely shuttled between the middle-class suburbs and the model inner city to prey on new victims. By the mid-80s, corporations routinely hired guard patrols to supplement already overloaded city police forces. These corporate police were well paid and had access to the best equipment available. As police services began to collapse throughout the US, many cities took to hiring corporate forces outright, deputizing them and turning city law enforcement over to them. The corporations were equal to the task. Ruthlessly, they equipped their teams with the best weapons and armor. When an arrest was made, they made the best use of their considerable legal talent and influence to ensure the severest penalties. When an arrest wasn't possible, they often resorted to the harshest of policies. Entire gangs would be decimated in a single night by heavy weapons teams and armored vehicles. The bodies would summarily end up in the landfill, and the legal staff would quietly arrange to cover the incident over. In the 2000s, the corporations usually controlled both the inner city and a large portion of the company-owned suburban development outside of the city. To facilitate their commuters, many of the megacorps have installed light rail and underground systems between the showcase inner city and the well-protected suburbs. Patrolled by corporate guards, monitored by cameras, and the most sophisticated sensors, these railways are always clean, quiet, and ominously crime-free. Corporate suburbia. By 1990, a two-bedroom house cost a median $200,000, more than most families could hope to raise. As the corporations fought for skilled employees, they realized that an affordable home could easily become one of the many fringe benefits to offer a prospective worker. Soon in the US and abroad, corporations began building or buying large tracts of housing, which were then offered at drastically reduced prices to company members. A further stage of development was reached in 1995, when, in the historic Technicorp versus Davis decision, the Supreme Court ruled that while a corporation could not restrict housing sales on the basis of race, creed, or color, it did have the right to offer housing to its employees on a preferential basis. As a result, most areas of corporate suburbia are routinely comprised of upper-middle-class execs and their families. While made up of widely varying races, religions, and nationalities, all corporate communities share a common origin: the company. Corporate profiles. The following report contains essential information and breakdowns on some of the 21st century's most prominent and powerful corporations. These profiles are intended to be used by the referee as guidelines, not as inflexible parameters. Head office is the location of the firm's board of directors, usually, but not always, the largest and most important executive facility the corporation has. Offices are other manufacturing or executive sites owned by the corporation. Listed sites are major offices. A corporation may have small bureaus worldwide. Stock is the total number of shares in existence for that corporation. Listed in each profile is the name and location of residence of that company's major shareholder. This is the single person who wields the true power behind the company. Any person or organization, such as the board of directors, which holds over 50% of the total stock, wields ultimate control over the corporation. Open shares are the shares currently up for sale of the World Stock Exchange, usually in the neighborhood of 10%. Troops represent the combined number of combat soldiers available to the corporation. Usually troops are spread among the offices of the corporation, with heavier numbers stationed at potential trouble sites or high-security compounds. Covert operatives are industrial and political espionage agents and covert combat operatives. Among other things, troops and covert operatives are used in the dangerous field of corporate extractions, removing valuable personnel from one corporation to another, either by defection or force. Equipment and resources are the vehicles, technology, and weapons owned by the corporation, as well as the equipment it can commandeer or procure from other sources, such as governments in an emergency. Most corporations own private helicopters and jets, which can be retrofitted for rapid deployment and combat use, as well as dedicated military vehicles. Commonly, the AV-4 urban assault vehicle and the Osprey 2 VTOL aircraft. The Osprey 2 is also used as a corporate transport in high-security situations. Large companies maintain a private airlift capability, usually using the Boeing C-25 heavy cargo aircraft. The C-25 can haul 6 AV-4s, 2 dismantled Osprey 2s, 3 tanks, or 500 troops depending on how it is fitted. Combination loads are also possible due to the aircraft's modular interior design. It can be assumed that such things as armored limousines and high-tech site security are standard. Some corporations have small orbital workstations for specialized zero-G production and research. These workstations consist of a number of pressurized shacks with no gravity of their own. The shacks are anchored together by a flexible structural framework that also supports power and life support pods, and are normally staffed by a few dozen people and a small contingent of space troops. These stations also maintain weapon systems to repel attacks from rival corporations if necessary. Workstations each have a few small pressurized and unpressurized service and transport vehicles. All corporations, with the exception of the Orbital Air Corporation, rely on government lifting vehicles or orbital air to shuttle products and personnel to and from orbit. EBM, Euro Business Machines Corporation, multi-role computer and electronics manufacturer. Headquarters, Hamburg. Name and location of major shareholder, Dr. Rudolf Müller, Bremen, Germany, holding 20.8% of total shares. There's 1 million employees worldwide, 20,000 troops, and 2,000 covert operatives. Background: in the late 1990s, EBM, already the largest computer and high-tech manufacturer in the world and one of the most significant corporations in existence, pulled off the greatest free market hostile takeover in history. Led by master corporate raider Dr. Kurt Müller, this maneuver caused the merger of EBM with many other prominent computer companies around the world, consolidating EBM's already fearsome market power. Currently, Müller and his two partners in the triumvirate, Ulf Grunwalder of Munich and Sir Nathaniel Poole of London, comprise the majority vote of EBM, holding 52.1% between the three of them. Their long-term goal is to consolidate as much of the world's high-tech manufacturing as possible under their label by any means. Equipment and resources. Dispersed among the EBM offices as dictated by need are 46 AV-4s, 20 Osprey 2 VTOL attack craft, 20 corporate jets for the use of the executive board, and 5 heavy cargo planes. In addition, each office has 2 helicopters and a fully staffed clinic and infirmary. EBM's power and stature gives it access to the highest levels of military technology. EBM also has a top-secret underground medical and research training facility hidden in the Alps. EBM maintains a small orbital research facility with about 30 researchers and 10 soldiers. Zetatech, wetware and computer hardware and software design. Headquarters, Cupertino, California, Silicon Valley. Regional offices, San Francisco, San Jose. Name and location of major shareholder, Bob Rosemont, New York, holding 58.8% of total shares. 12,000 employees worldwide, 150 troops, 12 covert operatives. Background: Zetatech is a typical, up-and-coming, high-tech company doing its best to grow and diversify. It has carved itself a small niche in the industry through the traditional methods: quality products, industrial espionage, and strategically applied violence. Having made it over the first hurdle, Zetatech is attempting to build a heavy name for itself by expanding overseas, the assured way towards success, and a high inflow of stable Eurodollars. This means encroaching on markets occupied by other companies, most of which are not inclined to share their profits. Zetatech's position as an established, growing, but small and relatively weak company make it a prime target for hostile takeover, and they must be continually on guard. Equipment and resources. 3 AV-4 assault vehicles, 3 helicopters, 1 private jet based out of San Francisco International Airport. Each office has an emergency first aid infirmary, but only the San Francisco office has a surgery-capable trauma center. The military hardware available to Zetatech is only of moderate power. High-tech personal arms, armor, and vehicular weapon systems are readily available, but only limited amounts of heavier weapons are available, and usually they cannot be obtained on short notice. Zetatech has no airlift capability of its own, but could arrange access to heavy lifting aircraft given enough time. Network 54 News, nationwide broadcasting service, headquarters New York. Many regional offices, name and location of major shareholder, Edwin R. Dreyer Foundation, under control of Michelle Dreyer. located at 50 Pines Ranch, near Santa Fe, New Mexico. The estate controls 27.9% of all shares, 78,000 worldwide employees, 5,000 troops, 750 covert operatives. Background: Network News 54 is a wavelength monopolizer operating on the same frequency across the country. Accordingly, no matter where you go in the country, Network News 54 is on Channel 54. Despite its name, News 54 offers many diversions in addition to news. Every regional office offers a slightly different schedule to its district, with syndicated series, non-prime timed movies, independent local news programs. Certain elements of the broadcasting are universal nationwide, such as primetime series and bi-hourly national and world news shows. Equipment and resources. Network News 54 owns 42 AV4s, ostensibly used as mobile news gathering and broadcasting facilities. These vehicles also retain much of their combat function. News 54 also owns 30 helicopters for weather and traffic reporting at each of the network offices, as well as 4 shuttling company executives and 10 corporate jets and 5 Osprey II aircraft. The network has standard personnel equipment for its troops, but little access to military weapons of a non-man, portable nature, with the exception of a few vehicles. News 54 has no airlift capability of its own. Orbital Air, cargo and passenger transport to Earth orbit, and maintenance of commercial orbital facilities. Headquarters, Nairobi, Kenya. Many regional offices, name and location of major shareholder, Antoine Dubois, Paris, holding 15.2% of total shares, 104,000 employees worldwide, 10,043 troops, 700 covert operatives. Background: Orbital Air holds a key position in the 21st century. With their large fleet of French-made Hermes space planes, they monopolize all orbital lifting capability, with the exception of a few governments, none of which offers comparable service. Many corporations rely on Orbital Air for transport of cargo out of the gravity well. The Eurospace Agency's Crystal Tower L5 colony, a massive orbital hotel complex for the ultra-rich, would be out of business without them. With all commercial space-bound cargo dependent upon them, Orbital Air is in a lucrative position that it would very much like to maintain. A large part of OA's budget and covert resources is put into ensuring that they remain the leader in orbital technology, and that the competition does not make it off the ground, literally or figuratively. Currently, their eye is on China, which is improving its commercial lift capability rapidly. Also, Euroflight Corporation is expanding its operations, and expected to bring orbital services online soon. This has OA worried about its monopoly. The Johnson Orbital Facility is a transfer station for passengers bound for the Crystal Tower, where they switch from the space planes to space transport shuttles, assembled at the OA orbital workstations, or purchased from the Eurospace Agency. Equipment and resources: 35 orbit-capable Hermes scramjet space planes, 35 corporate jets, 2 helicopters per office, 70 AV-4 urban assault vehicles, 15 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo jets, and 30 Osprey II VTOL aircraft. All major offices have surgery-capable infirmaries. Orbital Air is well-equipped and has access to almost all levels of military equipment. It is primarily interested in space defense and air superiority weaponry to protect its orbital and airborne resources. In addition to the Johnson facility, Orbital Air maintains 2 small maintenance and research workstations, and has a small fleet of orbital vehicles to transport crews between the facilities. Microtech, ultra-sophisticated mainframes and workstations. Headquarters, Dallas, Texas. Regional offices, Sunnyvale, California, Miami, London, Tokyo. Name and location of major shareholder, Stephen Liu and family, San Francisco, holding 55.5% of total shares. Employees are 52,340 worldwide, 1,000 troops, and 52 covert operatives. Background: Microtech does one thing, and they do it well: build full-size computers. They concentrate all of their efforts into improving their mainframe computer systems without dabbling in cybernetic computers or mini-computers. Indeed, they take pride in the fact that their mainframes and workstations are used by other companies to design those types of systems. They are to the 2000s what Cray was to the 1980s and 90s, but on a larger scale. Microtech is the industry standard. Defense agencies around the world rely on Microtech mainframes, and the Aerospace Agency has several. With its hold on the specialized mainframe industry, Microtech is worried not so much about acquiring proprietary data through espionage as protecting itself against such theft. This is where most of the covert and military resources go, as well as a sizable amount of its own computer power. Microtech must be vigilant for external threats as well. However, as there are several larger corporations who would like to acquire Microtech or see it eliminated in order to further the success of their own products, accordingly, Microtech is attempting to beef up both its financial and military security. Equipment and resources: 6 AV-4 assault vehicles, 10 helicopters, 2 Osprey 2s, and 3 corporate jets are dispersed among the offices. Microtech has access to sophisticated military hardware on a fairly small scale, with good amounts of personal weaponry and armor, including man-portable heavy weapons. It has no heavy, mobile armored vehicles, such as tanks, and only limited access to other vehicularly based heavy weapons. With sufficient time, however, Microtech can usually acquire whatever equipment it needs. Only the Dallas office has a surgery-capable medical center, but all the other offices have well-staffed infirmaries capable of dealing with most non-intensive care needs, including trauma and illness. Microtech has no orbital platform of its own, but it occasionally ships experiments up by Hermes spaceplane if zero gravity is required. Biotechnica: genetic engineering, microbiological and biochemical research. Headquarters: Rome. Regional offices: London, Bonn, Paris, and La Jolla, California. Name and location of major shareholder: Nicola Logaglia, Monte Carlo, Monaco, holding 13.8% of total shares. 36,256 employees worldwide, 1,833 troops, and 124 covert operatives. Background: when the fuel crisis really began to affect the industrialized community in the late 1990s, Biotechnica, then a small firm with only one office, came up with the answer: Chew-2, pronounced Chew-2. Chew-2, not its actual chemical formula, is a complex grain alcohol produced by genetically engineered yeasts and weight strains created by Biotechnica. The potential of Chew-2 was realized almost immediately after it was introduced, and within a few years, all fuel-burning vehicles and power plants had converted to the new fuel. Although Biotechnica held worldwide patents, it lacked the production facilities to meet worldwide demand, forcing it to license production to several large agribusinesses and petro corporations. These deals made Biotechnica an extremely wealthy, but still not particularly large company. It is currently expanding and working on its next big biotechnical breakthrough. Equipment and resources: Biotechnica has 10 AV-4 assault vehicles, 5 corporate jets, 3 Osprey 2 aircraft, and 1 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo jet, moved as needed among its offices. In addition, each office maintains 2 helicopters and a surgery-capable infirmary. Due to the worldwide importance of its developments, Biotechnica has a fair amount of power in the political community, and it can usually obtain whatever military equipment it needs, although some items may take more time to procure than others. Biotechnica has 1 orbital research workstation. Infocomp: corporate think tank and information brokers. Headquarters: Los Angeles. Regional offices in San Francisco, New York, Washington, Chicago, Denver, Vancouver, London, Honolulu. Name and location of major shareholder: Robert D. Bob Alvarez, Kappa Cowie, holding 19.2% of total shares. 9,352 worldwide employees, 400 troops, and 34 covert operatives. Background: Infocomp provides scientific, technical, and personal data pertaining to any subject to anyone who can afford to pay for it. The ultimate detectives, they pride themselves on their elite scientific and research staff's ability to unearth, cogitate, formulate, and theorize. For the right price, clients can access Infocomp's huge library of existing information, or have them provide information pertaining to a subject not yet explored. Watch out, the tougher the problem, the higher the bill. Equipment and resources: each office has a surgical-capable infirmary, an Osprey 2 aircraft, a private jet, 2 helicopters, 2 AV-4 urban assault vehicles, several Microtech Corp, advanced mainframes, and an extensive library and an information-gathering network. Merrill, Asukaga & Finch, exclusive investment and financial counseling firm. Headquarters: New York. Regional offices in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, Hong Kong, Tokyo, London, Paris, Munich, Rome. Name and location of major shareholder: Howard Merrill, New York, holding 22% of total shares. 21,926 employees worldwide, 100 troops, and 10 covert operatives. Background: if you have money and you want more, or you just want it safe, Merrill, Asukaga, and Finch are the people to talk to. They are without a doubt the top people in investments of all kinds, from stock to real estate to frog farming futures. However, if you don't have a good deal of money in the first place, they aren't interested. The commission on a $1,000 investment isn't worth their rather expensive time. MA&F's high caliber of service has attracted many of the richest and most powerful people in the world. If, for some reason, they were to go bankrupt, some of the greatest powers in the world, both legal and illegal, would be overturned. Equipment and resources, dispersed as needed among the offices, are 15 AV-4 assault vehicles, 8 corporate jets, and 2 Osprey 2 aircraft. Each office has 2 helicopters and a non-surgical infirmary. Merrill, Asukaga, and Finch controls the finances of many powerful people, and even some small nations. Accordingly, they can command a great deal at short notice, including political favors and powerful military equipment. WNS World News Service, Worldwide News Service. Headquarters London. Regional offices many. Name and location of major shareholder: Mehmet Al-Hamadi, Riyadh, holding 31.6% of total shares. 215,000 worldwide employees, 7,005 troops, 644 covert operatives. Background: WNS keeps tabs on the world by any means possible. Newspapers and news stations around the world pay large amounts of money to receive WNS stories via the WorldSat network. WNS has more offices than most corporations, but most of these offices are fairly small and limited in function, intended to serve only as bases of operations for the operatives and reporters working in an area. WNS has at least a small office in almost every major city in the world, but these are sometimes no more than rooms with a few provisions, one resident agent, and a telecom terminal linked to the nearest regional office. Few competitors can match WNS's information gathering capabilities, and WNS ensures that it remains at the forefront, not only through legitimate means, but also through spying, espionage, sabotage, and illegal snooping of all sorts. WNS does not run any stations of its own, choosing instead to broker its information to the highest bidder. There is no shortage of buyers, as ratings-hungry broadcasters will fork over millions for exclusive rights to an especially juicy story and the included multimedia presentation package containing WNS's videos, write-ups, and commentaries. Equipment and resources. Dispersed among the regional offices as needed are 65 AV-4 urban assault vehicles, 25 Osprey 2 aircraft, 25 corporate jets, and 5 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo aircraft. Each regional office has 2 helicopters and an infirmary. Only the London, Los Angeles, New York, Paris, Tokyo, and Seoul offices have surgical capability. WNS has access to moderate levels of military technology, including personal armor and weapons, light vehicles, and aircraft. Petrochem, petrochemical products and agribusinesses, world's largest Chew-2 producer. Headquarters Dallas, Texas. Regional offices many. Name and location of major shareholder: Ellen Treste, Crystal Tower Orbital Facility, holding 23.7% of total shares. 338,000 worldwide employees, 30,000 troops, 2,500 covert operatives. Background: Petrochem Industries keeps the world running, literally. They are the world's largest producer of Chew-2 and control millions of acres of arable land across the United States. This land is used to grow the genetically altered wheat that is used to make Chew-2. Surplus grain is shipped across the world as food. Petrochem is also one of the largest remaining oil producers. With the oil supply dwindling, all remaining fossil fuels are used to make plastics and other synthetics. Petrochem has more fertile oil fields than any other company. All of these assets are huge and accordingly hard to protect from other companies that would like to usurp Petrochem's wealth. As a result, Petrochem invests huge amounts of money in protecting itself, maintaining an armed force worthy of a small country. Currently, all of the major petrochemical corporations are in a research race to come up with a viable artificial plastic base to entirely replace petroleum products. Consequently, industrial espionage is rife in the industry. Equipment and resources. Petrochem has vast interests to protect, and is thus fiercely armed. Dispersed among their major offices, oil fields, and agricultural areas are 150 AV-4s, 40 Osprey 2 aircraft, 10 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo jets, and 15 corporate jets. Each office has 3 helicopters and a surgery-capable infirmary. Petrochem has considerable access to the highest levels of military technology due to their national and worldwide importance. They also have a large orbital research facility that is well protected physically and electronically. Trauma Team International, Ambulance and Paramedical Services, Headquarters Los Angeles. Regional offices worldwide in all major cities. Name and location of major shareholder, Carrie Lachon of San Antonio, Texas, holding 33.3% of total shares. 16,526 employees worldwide, 350 troops, and 25 covert operatives. Background: as one of the largest private medical firms in the world, Trauma Team provides ambulance services and paramedical support for a client base for at least 15 million people. Equipped with top-line AV-type vehicles, trauma teams provide an essential service in the 2000s, recovering wounded clients from the field. Equipment and resources dispersed as needed among the offices are 1,305 AV-4 Aerodyne vehicles, 30 corporate jets, 22 Osprey II aircraft, and 4 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo jets. Each office also has its own surgical-capable infirmary. WorldSat Communications Network, Satellite Transmission and Communications, Headquarters Paris, Regional Offices many. Name and location of major shareholder, Raymond Rousseau, Menton, French Riviera, holding 15.5% of total shares. 51,625 worldwide employees, 7,444 troops, 658 covert operatives. Background: WorldSat has the monopoly on large-scale satellite communications and is responsible for the transmission of phone, military, computer, and commercial data. These communications are crucial worldwide, and their disruption could be disastrous. WorldSat invests a great deal in making sure that this does not happen. The satellites are even shielded against electromagnetic pulse, although no one is really sure how well this will work. Although it is illegal, it is also possible for WorldSat to monitor any of the communications it is transmitting. Equipment and resources dispersed as needed among the offices are 30 AV-4 assault vehicles, 12 Osprey II aircraft, 5 corporate jets, and 3 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo jets. Each office has 2 helicopters and a surgical infirmary. WorldSat satellites are crucial to many nations' communications. Consequently, most high-tech military hardware is available to them on short notice. WorldSat has a large, well-protected orbital service facility. Arasaka, corporate security, corporate police, and various corporate sub-operations. Headquarters, Tokyo. Regional offices, many. Name and location of major shareholder, Saburo Arasaka, Tokyo, holding 19.9% of total shares. 1 million employees worldwide, 100,000 troops, 5,000 covert operatives. Background: if you want it protected, these are the people to speak to. They maintain the largest armed force of any corporation, although they do not maintain a particularly large amount of on-hand military heavy weapons. These troops are mostly licensed out to other firms as corporate security guards, couriers, and mercenaries. They are the best trained and hardest in the business, and will follow their clients' orders second only to Arasaka's. To the Arasaka Corporation, they are loyal to the point of death. Arasaka is more interested in fostering its own political goals than protecting other companies, and they use their position of trust with major corporations around the world to gain inside information, contacts, and advantages that will help them realize their ultimate goal of political and economic control of Japan. Equipment and resources dispersed among Arasaka's offices are 250 AV-4 assault vehicles, 250 Osprey II aircraft, 11 corporate jets, and 20 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo jets. Each office also has 2 helicopters and a surgical infirmary. Arasaka's wealth gives it access to almost all levels of military technology on fairly short notice. Arasaka has a secret training facility in Hokkaido, where it trains its security troops and operatives. Militech, arms manufacturing and distribution mercenaries. Headquarters, Washington, D.C. Regional offices, many. Name and location of major shareholder, General Donald Lundy, USMC, retired, Annapolis, Maryland, holding 13.9% of total shares. 350,000 employees worldwide, 100,000 troops, 2,031 covert operatives. Equipment and resources dispersed among its offices and mercenary forces as needed are 200 AV-4 urban assault vehicles, 150 Osprey II aircraft, 20 corporate jets, and 20 Boeing C-25 heavy cargo aircraft. Usually, 50 to 75% of this equipment is in the field at any given time. Additionally, each office has 2 helicopters and a surgical infirmary. Naturally, MTI has access to large amounts of the best military technology available. MTI maintains secret training camps in Texas, the Sierra Nevada mountains of California, and Florida. Background: MTI is the world's largest producer and seller of military weapons of all kinds, from revolvers to tanks to jet fighters. MTI is a major military supplier to the United States, and the United States, in turn, is MTI's largest customer. MTI will deal worldwide with anyone who has money. MTI's mercenary forces and in-house supply of weaponry make it the most militarily powerful company in the world, if not the most economically. That will come later. I love this place. On the other hand, I've also been accused of being a masochist. Johnny Silverhand.
Nobody ever leaves Night City, except in a body bag.
Bess Isis. The City of Fallen Angels, not to mention the Legion, the Chromers, the Gilligans, the Inquisitors, Lieutenant Strawberry Morsey, NCPD. Night City! Awoo! Unknown. That was Section 14, the Megacorps of 2020. A pretty dry section. It's all just a bunch of background for, 1, how corporations, like big corporations, operate, and 2, how, like, stock works. And then 3, explaining the major corporations that you'll probably be running into during play in the world of Cyberpunk 2020. Nice little background for each company. I like that they give you their equipment and resources and how many troops and employees they have and covert operatives. I don't really know, like, the format they give it to you in, which is just text, is kind of like boring and dry. You could probably represent it with, like, because I'm seeing like a lot of people own AV4s and they own like Ospreys and they own Boeing 25 vehicles. So you could just represent it with a symbol and then make that symbol times how many they would have at any one given time. And it was kind of cool to see because, like, we all are familiar with the most infamous company, the Arasaka Corporation, is second to last. And Trauma Team is also in here too. Did not see ITS. The ITS, if you remember from the last section, was who Alt worked for before she got captured and soul-killered. A lot of different... I like, they go into, like, who makes the food, they go into who makes the fuel, who provides the news, all good stuff. If you were going to be playing a Corpo, this would definitely be a section you would have to go over, because these are basically a list of all your enemies and maybe one of the factions that you belong to. And if you were playing like a media that was a part of a major organization, they have a few here that you would definitely want to, like, clap your eyes on. So that's cool and all. It's definitely not a necessary read, but it helps flesh out who are the major players in the world of Cyberpunk, which you probably won't be interacting with a lot until you get to higher levels or have higher capabilities, to the point where corporations start noticing you more, and you're going to have to deal with the fact that your power makes other people want it, and you're going to have to contend with that. But that's it for this section. It was a long read, a dry read, but ultimately necessary. I'd put it in a different format, but hey, that's just me. Until next time.